is not
The Board of Education owns that capital account right now.
Right.
That new reserve line where the
The
$200,000
new reserve
sits.
line is coming out of the Gilbert?
No.
No, it's
The
coming out
Board
of
of
our
Ed
side.
is the only entity that can access that designated $200,000 capital reserve line stated for that roof project.
Remember that roof
And
is-
Nancy and town will have to do a transfer
Right.
when the time comes and
Pay
if
for.
what the bill comes in or through the tuition bill, however they decide to do that, to transfer the amount based upon the bill. But let's say in Doug's example that the bill is only $150,000. That line is a WBOE line.
It's our money.
So what's going to stop the Gilbert from wanting the full tuition amount?
Well, they're gonna get the full tuition.
Well, no, let's say they don't spend it on the roof, and they bill us for the full tuition.
It's a matter of good faith at that point. I think everything, I think this
Okay.
whole arrangement is based on good faith, because the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen is giving us $200,000, which we
Well, and I
are
think-
directed to give to them for the roof.
Well, and I think it's been well stated that this is for a roof, and I think we do have some responsibility to obtain documentation in the fact, especially since this is coming from the capital reserve account for the entity of the roof, that we do have a responsibility to obtain some proof of roof completion, roof payment, a roof.
Proof of roof?
Yes,
I just,
to justify that.
They currently do that with the grants that I
Yes.
administer on their behalf too, so they have to provide me with the invoices.
Yeah.
but bear in mind, again, these are not our buildings, these are private buildings. So this is an important, like, delineation, I think, and it's important that they use the money this way in good trust, in good faith. But it also shows to the taxpayer that this cost is a lot.
So I'm still a little confused as to where this $200,000 is coming from. So,
coming-
so the
Towns-
tuition from Gilbert included $200,000
It
for
did.
roof repair,
did.
correct?
Right.
So now are we giving them $200,000 less because we have this $200,000 line item?
We're holding it.
Because it's for buildings
Yeah.
that we don't own.
Renata,
And
I
the
have-
taxpayer needs to know
I
that.
have the same question,
We
right?
can't count it or
Is-
spend it.
No, we're going to give them the amount of their request minus the 200,000, and then when they do the roof project, we're going to reimburse them
Right.
accordingly up to $200,000.
So the 200 is coming out of
Okay.
their
Sitting
line
in a
item, right, which is within our large budget. It's not coming out of our large budget, but they're
Right.
creating a separate line item of the 200 out of their line item,
Correct.
correct?
Is
That's
that correct?
Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
You want her to say
Did you
that again?
understand what I
correct?
said?
I understand. I'm
Okay.
not sure I'm in
Is-
agreement.
Well,
Okay, well
so
then
let me
let's
say-
talk
let me
about
say
that
this
so
again.
that there's no surprises.
I want to
Okay.
make sure that I'm clear, and this probably is something that should be discussed tomorrow night at the Gilbert meeting.
Okay.
Because yes, that is one way that this could be done.
Okay, so what's,
The second way is
other way.
that Gilbert could charge us the full tuition amount. However, then we would take that out and reimburse ourselves for the roof, and they would just take the money that they get through our tuition.
And we wouldn't give them
Pay
the
it.
$200,000.
And, well, we would reimburse ourselves for giving them the $200,000 through tuition.
I don't
Do you
like
see what I'm
that.
saying?
I
Getting
don't
a
like
little-
that at all.
Well, I think that's why you guys need to talk about this tomorrow night at the Gilbert meeting and make a determination on how that will flow through.
I think it has to be clear that the $200,000 is a separate amount of a fund that came from a different source, and it's going to be dispersed only for that purpose.
That's right,
We need receipts.
right, that's right.
Exactly.
So I
Invoices,
think
copies
there's
of
several
invoices.
ways that
Yeah.
that could go about, so I just want to make sure that we're clear that
All right.
we
no,
get that taken care of that way.
We will.
Is it a reimbursement, or are we paying it directly
It's
to
a
the
re-
contractor?
Well, we don't have clarity on that.
Okay.
I guess that would become a cash flow issue if they can take the money out of our, are we paying them quarterly now?
No, monthly.
Greg said quarterly this morning. Couldn't understand why he said that.
That's monthly.
So if they have the cash available, I don't see why they wouldn't pay it up front and then submit the invoices to us, and we would then pay them,
Reimbursement.
reimburse them for up to 200,000, no more.
I guess I'm questioning why we did it that way. Is it because of the state reimbursement? Like, why?
No.
I don't know, I guess.
I think the motivation.
Trying to figure it out.
The motivation, Renee, was twofold. One is they wanted to keep the tax increase lower, and they did that by taking $200,000 from the general reserve fund. So they didn't have to ask the taxpayer to front that. There was money that was already there in another pot. And also, I think they wanted to make a point of saying that this is a capital project and should be treated differently than an operating expense.
And they wanted to keep it off the MBR line too. Because if they put the $200,000 on the as a capital on the appropriated budget line, it counted towards the MBR, which is the minimum budget amount, which once you go to a new threshold, it sets a new MBR. And every time you go to a new you up it, it sets a new MBR, and you're never able to fall back below that. Do you see what I'm saying? So every time, let's just say we had a $500,000 capital improvement next year, and we put it on the appropriated line, not on a capital revenue line like they did, you would set a new MBR.
So when the roof projects are done, you know then not to give Gilbert that increase in the following years because the roofs are done. So they can't keep charging the town for an increase.
That's a good point, but they have 13 roofs.
I was going to
But
say,
at some point, remember, we don't own the roofs, but at some point, the roof projects are going to be done, so they should not continue to bill us for an increase in the tuition bill when the capital projects are done.
well, so I don't want to complicate it, but just kind of looking forward, I know this is like these are going to be ongoing projects, the roofs, over the next however many years. I thought it was 5 years when I had initially asked about it, but I suspect it may be longer if there's so many roofs. Is this gonna be a practice now from now on, using the capital? I mean, well, because one of the reasons was obviously to keep the MBR in check, but then the other one was to separate, or, you know what I mean, to keep kind of an eye on capital expenses versus tuition.
Tuition, right.
So if that's really one of the reasons, is it a bad practice to have this line and to keep those capital expenses, like, keep an
Separate.
eye on them? Yeah.
I don't think it's,
Not bad, or is
if
it
you were to
something
look
we're
at
gonna
other
do?
school districts, I don't think it's unusual to have capital projects broken out from operating expense.
So it might be something that we would consider moving
They
forward?
might, I mean, I can't look inside their minds, I really don't know exactly
Oh,
what their
when you mean
intention
Board of
was.
Selectmen, you mean? or-
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was all at their discretion, we had nothing
Right.
to do with how that was set up.
So is that our reason, the keeping it third?
No, we have
reason?
nothing, we're
But-
being given a direction.
Right, oh, no, but you had said one of the reasons would be to kind of keep the capital expenses separate.
That would,
For a couple of
I'm
couple of
inferring that's what the
purposes.
Board of Selectmen would want to do.
Okay. I just to understand.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea, I'm just,
Nancy, do you
Sorry.
have those papers from last night that I could borrow for the evening? Thank you.
Weird, it's a difficult, strange relationship. It's unusual, paying 96.5% of the tuition there, and so it's good to separate capital improvements, because we don't, again, own the buildings. Typically, the taxpayer pays for buildings that we own.
But, you know, and again, the other complication becomes if Gilbert is successful in applying for a state reimbursement and it goes back to them, which it would, we need an agreement that says, okay, you got your money back, that was our money,
That's right.
we want to be paid back.
We
well,
need
that's why
an
it keeps a
MOU.
record as well,
Right.
right?
That's
That was kind
it.
of my,
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt anything, is
I don't
I
think
guess
so.
what,
That's a good point, Doug.
that's a really good point.
but I'm not a finance expert.
Did you want to?
Okay.
The other question is what if it's more than 200,000?
Then they're going to have to find the money or
the-
not do it.
Yeah, the trust is gonna have to,
It's just so many.
It's complicated.
very complicated.
And so the Building and Grounds Committee is going to meet, well, actually on Thursday this week, there'll be a report from the Temco Roofing, Trimco that does the roofing analysis for Gilbert. When we get that, we'll know more about what costs they're facing for the roof, and which, you know, they've got, what do we have, 5 roofs that could be repaired? They'd like to do
But
the
again, they're
gymnasium.
repairing them, so then they wouldn't qualify for the reimbursement from the state,
They
from
will
what you
not.
said before.
They will not.
So
They would
it's
have to replace
so
them.
Convoluted.
It is.
Yeah.
And we have very little control over any of that. We have none, actually.
That's why this relationship building is so important, Nora, until we can suss this all out.
So is there something you wanted to, you or Nancy, is there something else you'd like to talk about this evening about this, the next year's budget? Or we, basically, this is where we're at?
I think it's all done, yeah.
Okay,
I'll just separate it out so you see it in the reports for next year.
yeah. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Are you all set with it, or is still?
Yeah, I see what Nancy did here. Nancy's numbers do match, and I'm just going through the Board of Selectmen budget from last night. Her numbers do match the Board of Selectmen numbers, the 21,660. And then they have that separate line of $200,000. So obviously, if you add the 21,660 plus the $200,000, you get the 21,860 that we originally requested. So when you put those two numbers together, they are whole numbers, obviously. So there was not an additional 200,000 that was cut on top of that. So what we need to do is add that third line in here, and then we also need to adjust the Gilbert tuition line in some way. We gotta figure, I think we gotta talk to Gilbert about how we're gonna flush out that tuition
and we can talk about
line.
that tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Can I ask a really quick
Yeah.
question? Sorry. The 200,000, if we were to create another line here, another BOS line, would that be coming out of the town appropriated? Is that the number that would be
No,
impacted?
so it would, so if you were to add a column, you're kind of asking what it would be titled?
Well, no, just wondering where the money would be moved from, not moved from, but what number
No,
would
it's moved.
change?
It's moved.
So no numbers would change right now. This is the, so see where it went from, in the top line here, Tara, from the 21,860?
Yeah.
To the 21,660?
Yep.
We don't have the $200,000 represented on here. So that would be like underneath here. This is,
That's
we need
exactly
to
what I
add.
meant. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
We
Yep.
need to add that revenue line
Totally understand, okay.
right
That's
here to
exactly what I meant.
represent that $200,000.
No, I got
Because
it.
right now, it looks like a cut when it's actually not a cut.
It's just another line.
Correct.
Got it, yep, okay.
That is coming out of the line of the Gilbert, and that's what you are going to discuss
Which is
more
in the
with them, so we
appropriated
can
budget,
nail that down and have a firm plan of what, so we're all clear.
So do we need to delay approving this revised budget until next, or are we clear enough on our understanding so we can vote on that tonight?
I think on our end, I'd like to recommend the board move forward with it because our numbers are solid.
Yeah.
It's just honestly on Gilbert's end how the bill will get submitted.
Correct.
And we understand the cut in the town support for education is basically a wash, so we're not
Right.
offended by that.
And then the language around that, right? Is that something that needs to be discussed? Okay,
About,
for Gilbert, if there is reimbursement or anything like that.
yeah, and I don't honestly know if it's possible to get a grant application in time to do a roof this summer.
I think
This
it's
is
probably too
beginning to
late.
sound like something that maybe, like Greg and Melanie and everyone maybe needs to talk about. I don't know if it's something that,
You,
Board of Selectmen folk, key people there need to be there too, I guess.
yeah, like, I mean,
yeah.
just how this 200,000 thing is gonna work. It just seems like it's getting a little involved. I don't know.
Well, it's there. Nothing got cut. We got
Right.
everything we asked for.
We just have to figure it out, like, I know
The logistics.
we have the meeting
Right.
tomorrow, but I don't know if that's the place to kind of like get everything figured out, if it's.
Well, definitely before referendum, we will have a clear idea, correct, of the logistics of where, when, and how the money is being moved, and
You had
agreement.
good questions too. Good thing it's recorded because we can ask those questions at that meeting.
So is there somebody who's comfortable enough with what we've discussed tonight to make a motion to approve the fiscal year '24 budget as it's presented here this evening with the understanding that there's an additional line of $200,000?
You gotta be louder, I think.
I would just ask that you take out the sheet that it's entitled 22-24 proposed
says total budgetary request, town
So
support.
we go with the
appropriate.
front page with, and if we were to manually write in one extra line for $200,000 for capital improvements for the TGS roof.
That is coming out of the budget, the Gilbert line item request. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, the net
The town's fund balance.
is the same, it's just the Gilbert line that's missing on
Okay.
the one page.
Right.
And the mix between the wages and the Gilbert tuition and such on the
Yeah.
appropriated summary page.
I think we all understand each other. So if we do, and somebody wants to make a motion, we can act on it. If there's still confusion, we can probably delay it a month, would that be the end of the world? Yeah.
So I will make a
Because the town has to have it solidified by Friday.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
gotta
we need-
happen.
we need to do it.
All right, so
Can we do it with an amendment?
we can
No?
do it with like real just specific attention to page 1. For example, I make a motion to accept the budget presented here for fiscal year 2024
With the understanding that,
With the addition of the
with the
200.
addition of the 200,000
Capital reserve.
from the third line item, if you will, the town's fund balance, the capital reserve, to the 21,660,360, for a total,
21,860,360.
for 21 million,
No,
oh, for that line, okay.
No,
So I
you're
gotta go to the, I
adding
gotta
in-
go to the bottom.
The bottom line is correct.
The 24,550?
yeah, you're
776?
adding a new line
Okay,
that says Board of Education. I'll help you out with the language part, don't worry. So the motion should be something to the effect of, you are adding a new line
yep.
that will include a $200,000
Uh-huh.
capital fund balance
Capital fund,
revenue line,
balance, revenue line,
and just leave it at that.
okay.
So the bottom line remains the same.
You mean the 24,550,776?
I'm
That-
just
What
adding
does?
this up.
Or does that remain the same?
Or does it?
That column.
Do we have to add 200 to that?
You're gonna have to add 200 to that, is my understanding,
So-
yes.
You have to add
6,
200 to
7,
that
yeah,
bottom
because
line.
the only thing cut was the electric, which is 100,000.
So it'll be 24,750,776.
Yep.
right.
750,776. Okay, so I make a motion to approve the fiscal year budget 2024, $24,750,776.
Second that.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Because we've
Further
added a new
discussion?
line.
All in favor? Okay, it is unanimous.
Who's second? Tara?
All right,
Thanks.
good,
you.
thank you all.
All right,
That's a lot of numbers.
that, hey,
On to policies.
policies.
We have two for first read. Since Cheryl's not here, she didn't join us.
She did not. So the two for first read, I'll just do them. These came as you were aware last time, we were able to type directly in and fix everything. So I do not believe we should have any edits this evening, to the best of my
Well,
knowledge
hey,
at this moment.
Just a moment, I might
But
have a question.
feel free to review. They have been completely added in the way that we had discussed when we were in committee at past. And the first is the reporting of child abuse, neglect, and sexual assault, which is a mandated policy.
I make a motion if you're ready.
It's first read.
I'm
Motion
ready
accepted.
for that one, for sure.
Oh, my bad. It is first read. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is no motion.
No, we need a
But it's a
motion
motion to move it to
second
second.
reader.
Right. Okay. Parental child abuse. I make a motion to move 5141.4 to second read.
Is there a second? Okay, Jeanette, second. Any discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor of moving that policy to second read? That is unanimous, thank you. And policy 514, 5.511, exploitation and sexual harassment.
Again, this is another mandated policy. We did review this in committee last time. Should be exactly as we discussed. It's relatively short, 2 pages.
I just had one question.
Yeah,
Second line, underneath definition, sexual violence. It reads, and is connected to influence by other forms of oppression, in particular sexism, racism, and heterosexism. What is that?
I looked that one up, and that means, I can't remember what it means, but I have a question about this, but I do have a question about the same thing, and I remember asking about it in committee, and I'm sort of hung up, because I've been doing a little bit of reading about the terminology of sexual violence and the definition of it, in terms of,
heterosexism, if
looked
you'd
up
like
the-
the Google.
Yes,
It
please,
is a
because-
noun, and it is discrimination or prejudice against gay people on the
Right.
assumption that heterosexuality is the normal sexual orientation.
Okay.
so I guess I would like a better explanation of why oppression is considered sexual violence, just for my own edification. That's a good question? You like that question? Okay, good,
Forms of
because,
oppression.
yeah.
These are the examples of oppression, right? Oh, is that what,
I mean,
Broader.
language is
Oppression's
important,
broader,
right?
isn't it?
Language is important, and I did ask whether what is the difference between harassment and violence, and why are we now using terminology, where is oppression violence? I would just like somebody to maybe expand on that before we.
So where is oppression violence?
Mhm.
There could be
Like what would
nonviolent
be-
and violent forms of oppression.
What's the Google definition of oppression?
Well, what's the Google
Tara?
definition of sexual violence is sexual, and this comes from the World Health Organization, is that who writes these, Melanie? Are these directly from
This
CABE?
is from CABE, and
Right.
some of this is from statute.
Yep,
The statewide sexual abuse and assault and awareness and prevention program was one
Right.
of the legal
Yep.
references. And then the statewide K-12 sexual assault and abuse prevention and awareness program
by DCF.
developed by DCF, Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence. And then an act, one of the PAs concerning identification and prevention and response to adult sexual misconduct
Yeah.
against children, so.
So I guess I'm just, my question would be, because the definition of sexual violence is, from my understanding, and looking at the World Health Organization, it's a range from verbal harassment to actual rape, coercion, social pressure, and intimidation using physical force. And then, so what would be the forms of oppression that would qualify as sexual violence?
So maybe what we need to look up is, do we look up the term,
I just want to
what
make sure that we're
violence is, because I'm looking
particular
at
in
the
our
last
language.
sentence, and it says physical, through
Right.
physical means or through threats.
Yes, and that I
So
would
is
understand as sexual
threatening-
violence. But whereas oppression, sexism, racism would now be considered sexual violence, or is that too broad of a category? I'm just wondering.
I see what you're saying.
it says it's connected to and influenced by, so.
But sexism, racism, and
So-
heterosexism can be
So why isn't
considered-
sexual abuse influenced by the same, sexual assault influenced by the same? See, these other two definitions exclude it.
So I guess I just
I
want to
think that
fuller
they're
understand
tying
it.
more forms of oppression in terms of sexism, racism, to more societal situations, like you have seen, like the mutilation of female genitalia in certain cultures and societies, like that's a form of oppressive behavior. You know, so I think they're trying to tie more societal situations to the word oppression. In that, and that's just one example that I can think of that possibly could link that.
And I would agree that that would definitely be an example. So I guess maybe just having such a broad, using sexism, racism, and heterosexism as forms of oppression which are considered sexual violence, whereas in something particular, like you just stated, definitely that fits the definition of sexual violence, right? So I guess my concern would be that it seems so broad that any type of sexism or racism that is used in an oppressive way would be considered sexual violence.
If the board
If
wishes,
I'm reading this correctly.
we can
I'm
bring it
not
back
sure.
to committee for discussion.
I think that might be an interesting idea.
Okay, so
What
would
do
you
you
like to
girls
make
think?
a motion to return the table and return
I
it to
think
the
I'd
policy
like to
committee?
talk a little bit more about it.
We already have a motion on the floor.
We
Don't
do.
we? Didn't you already vote, someone already voted to?
For the
No, I
last,
asked
for
for
the
it.
Oh,
last
the
one.
last one.
So let's bring this one back to you. So
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to bring this 5145.511 back to committee.
Second.
Is that the only section? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Okay.
it really is, and it's just because of that new terminology of sexual violence. I just want a better clarification of what would fall under that, rather than leaving it so broadly open
Right, because when
as
you,
to oppression, sexism, racism, and,
any definitions about sexual violence does not cover any of,
it's kind of,
there's only one that.
seems very broad.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of returning that to the policy committee? That is
So
unanimous.
Sandra, just remember why.
I
have it written
will,
I'm writing Sandra's
Thank you.
objections. Just
Say
remember
Sandra,
why, because
that's it.
sometimes we forget.
yes.
Why did we do this?
I won't forget this one, Nora.
Okay.
All
I
right.
know we've talked a little bit about the different CABE policies that we're getting, and maybe it's time to really take a look at some other examples of some other, that are presented by some other places, like in
Yeah, I
committee.
believe your legal firm
you
can
know.
provide the same.
Shipman and Goodwin can provide the same service. It's a initial buy-in fee, and then there's an annual subscription fee where they provide you, and those are already legally vetted by our attorney firm, so that could definitely be something that we
I
consider.
think we should look into it, because it seems like we're finding a lot within these that are a little,
That we're having to rewrite and edit, yeah.
And-
But that's a good thing, I think, because it keeps
Yeah.
us thinking and talking about it, right?
yeah.
And there has been a change in staff at CABE
Okay.
regarding who crafts these policies, so perhaps
Oh,
that's one of the
interesting.
reasons.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, something to look
All right.
into.
Thank
All
you,
right,
people.
so now we have four
Appreciate the support.
policies for a second read. One is curriculum, 6140. How are we feeling about that?
I make a motion to accept 6140.
I have another question about this, Nora.
Okay?
Again, in looking at this, right, and it's putting in all the things that we want to be in our curriculum. And remember when we were looking at 10 and 11 and we're like, well, why isn't 12 considered? Well, they must have heard us because they put in 12. Now I'm wondering about all the,
But we did that, you did that.
We did that. We
Yeah.
added Asian American Pacific Islander.
okay.
That was your.
That
And
was our
Native
notes.
American Studies. But now my question is, are we leaving anybody out?
But this is
These are
based on state
statutorily
statute.
required.
So we have no choice to add these. Do we have a choice to add? We can, if we want to go back to first read and add others.
Adding
I thought we
others?
discussed
But
that, though.
I-
We
But
discussed
we-
that meeting.
Go ahead,
I
Melanie, give us
think
your.
we did.
I would not recommend adding
Okay.
to this list because that would change our curriculum
Correct.
requirements at
Correct.
this moment.
This aligns
And
with census. is
this
that correct?
aligns with what's required by Connecticut statute, and right now, we are stretched thin as it is in terms of curriculum abilities.
But also, too, this is not curriculum. This is a policy
This is
about curriculum.
about curriculum,
So if you want
yes.
to add, while you're developing curriculum, you can do that, but that's not what this is.
So once we do the social studies.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
You withdraw your
that is
objections?
that was just my question.
Okay.
I started feeling sad for the Irish who weren't in here.
So I don't think we had a motion.
No.
I
Is-
make a motion to move 6140 to acceptance.
Second.
That was not English.
Okay.
Tara, second.
Seconded by Tara. All in favor? All right, that is, are you voting for that,
Yes,
Sandra?
sorry,
Okay.
yes, I am.
Unanimous, Barb?
Policy 4113.12, minimum duty-free lunch period for teachers.
I make a motion to accept 113.12.
Motion from
All
Nora, second
teachers
from
should have
Jeanette.
lunch.
Any questions or objections or discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous, I believe. Renee,
yes.
we're good?
Yep.
Okay, now we get into the
Yes, are very
tickets again.
good.
Policy
Controversial.
6144A, controversial issues.
This is one we worked on.
Yes.
We've worked on this
Yeah,
several
we
times.
worked on this
Yeah,
for a long
but it was
time.
good. Yeah, I like it.
I think we started
it-
back in October.
Yeah.
I think we're good, but I have one question.
All right, go for it.
In the introduction paragraph, the title of this policy is controversial issues. That paragraph doesn't use the word issues. It uses the word topics and policies.
So fifth word in
Introduction.
the issue.
So
Open
maybe it should be
constructive dialogue.
controversial topics.
Open constructive dialogue about issues of public concern is a hallmark of lifelong learning and responsible citizen. This includes a discussion of controversial social, political, and economic topics, policies, and issues? Or are we inferring
I
that
think it
topics
says
and
this
policies
includes.
are issues?
I think the
Yeah.
social, political, and economic topics are issues.
I think
Okay.
issues is the umbrella, and then
Just
this
curious, George.
includes-
Okay, I have no other issues. I make a motion to accept 6144A, controversial issues.
I second that.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Wow, we're gonna get it done? All in favor?
Oh, my goodness.
Yes,
it's
you got that one
unanimous.
good.
Turn the page, turn the
Wow.
page.
Oh, my gosh, wow. Putting that to bed. Okay.
All right, and now this has gotta be an easy one.
No.
Slam dunk, come on.
Wow, look at all my
Policy
markups.
9321.2, board bylaws, re-election board of ed meeting, electronic board of ed meetings.
Okay, so I just have a question.
It's starting to sound like me.
So I could understand this. This thing talks about an electronic meeting. If so, you get a 48-hour notification.
Correct.
If it's a regular meeting, it's a 24-hour notification.
Correct.
That's why these two paragraphs are different.
Yes.
Like, I noticed differences. Okay, so that's one. Okay, that's clear, that's good. Now, you know how we added the Board of Education Chair's discretion under policy statement on page 47? I'm fine with that. Going back, though, to page 46, the second paragraph where it says public notice, in the middle of that sentence or paragraph in parentheses, it says, in an emergency meeting, the board may proceed to conduct business if and to the extent required by the emergency. Who determines what is an emergency? What constitutes an emergency?
Through Robert's Rules of Order, there are several lists available that have emergency list that Board of Education's or meetings can be held for certain reasons.
Okay.
You know, Nora, in a terrible situation, a school building burns to the ground, the Board of Education can hold an emergency meeting to deal with that situation.
Using the normal Roberts Rules procedures.
Yeah, there's an outlined guide
Okay.
around that.
Okay, so
Are you
is
comfortable
that
with that?
understood? Because here we cite at the chair's discretion, and here we don't articulate Robert's rules, so is it inferred?
Well, at the chair's discretion, it says may hold a public meeting that is accessible. That's talking about electronic.
Yeah, so that's not the topic of this
This,
purpose of this policy?
correct.
Okay,
So are you comfortable with the language the way it is,
Sure.
Nora?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Any other questions on that? Is there a motion to approve that policy?
I make a motion to approve 9321.2A.
Second, Renee.
Second from Renee, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Public comment, Mr. Lapointe, do you have
Sailing
anything to say
through
this evening? And
Sailing through. Yeah.
I have read to you our statement many times, I'm sure you have it memorized by now, so I won't repeat it.
David LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, Winchester, Connecticut. First, I want to thank Melody and the board for acting acting on that public comment and your new policy, which is constitutional, number one. Number two, I'd like to thank the superintendent for speaking 2 selectmen meetings ago during budgetary comment in regards to a entity, a gentleman who already has 3 entities going, and he's trying to start another one, and he's asking for a for-profit business to get a tax abatement. And he sat here at this table for over an hour, and thank God for Linda Linda Rappo, for citing all of the appropriate avenues that he's already ascertained to have abatements and grants from the federal government, the state, and local government. So I'm happy that your superintendent stood her ground, stating what she believed and I believe is the right thing to do, not grant that abatement. Because if he wants a for-profit business, no matter what kind of business it is, Mr. Nugent wanted to open a business up at the old bachelor school, which I supported. And that did not come to fruition with this Board of Selectmen. We already have sufficient elderly housing in this town. Do we need more? Do we need more government funds? Of course, we'd like more government funds, and we're going to be getting more government funds. Taxpayer money, which comes from taxpayers to the town of Winchester, and that school is not going to generate a hell of a lot of taxes to support the school system. How many elderly units are going to be put there? Well, that's debatable. But anyways, that's the course that the Board of Selectmen chose to do, and I highly disagree with that. But the superintendent didn't comment on that. But neither here nor there, in regards to tomorrow, up at the state legislature, tomorrow is Parental Rights Lobby Day, Wednesday, April 19th, from 10 a.m. till noon. There will be speakers discussing critical bills, and you can meet with your state representatives, your state senators. The Connecticut Family Institute is holding it, as well as the CTRA, Connecticut Republican Assembly, and Moms for Freedom and Liberty, as well as Families for Freedom. So I just want to say thank you for being advocates and holding the line for our children in the school system. And also, I'm praying that St. Anthony's comes to fruition, again, for those who want to have religious education also in this town, because that was the oldest parochial school in the state of Connecticut, and it's my hope that it reopens. Of course, they've been leasing it to help this school system out, but parental rights, I don't see this board as trampling that, and that's good, as other boards have throughout the state, and so you all deserve credit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flake. Thank you for your comments. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.